The market had a healthy pullback today. It plummeted for some people, but for investors, we love these healthy pullbacks. It gives us buying opportunities. The market goes up 70 to 75% of the time, right? So we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of these buying opportunities for some of your favorite companies, especially going into November election time and then into the final end of the year, right? You want to prepare yourself for a new year. All right. So what I want to do today is talk about what accelerated this downside a little bit more. We talked about it yesterday, which was our fear and greed index. We were extreme greed at our 77 points. And then we pulled back today to around 70 on the fear and greed index scale. All right. So that's what accelerated the downside a little bit. We had a couple of companies that leaked their earnings, right? I should say one company leaked their earnings. We'll talk about that. And then I want to give some levels for you to continue off through the rest of the week. All right. So if you're here for that, we'd love to have you click the links down below to join our Discord. We'd love to have you inside. That is where we trade live each and every day. We also give trade ideas, but not only that, we are a holistic community, Leverage University. So I am a life coach and a business coach as well. So we provide entrepreneurship advice. We give credit information for your credit cards and to leverage other people's money in the banks. Right. And we also have our one-on-one mentorship levels where I'm working with you one-on-one, not just in the trading space, but also your psychology and understanding how you can be a better human being and thought leader. All right. So if you're about that, all right, go ahead and check those links down below. There's some free information, some free trainings for you, some free stocks as well if you want to sign up for a new brokerage. All right. Well, let's jump into it without further ado. Let me shrink myself here and let's talk about what accelerated this downside. Okay. So let's jump right into it. We have ASML, which is the producer or the manufacturer of a lot of these chip parts. So we can see here that ASML leaked their earnings, all right, which, hey, I'm laughing only because who leaks their earnings the day before and pulls the stock market back right to where big money typically wants to pick up the dip, all right? So chip company ASML shares plunge 16% after warning of a weaker China sales in early release. Now, if you don't know, they were supposed to have earnings release in the morning, okay? ASML affects the semiconductor sector, obviously, and they leaked their earnings. So the semiconductor sector pulled back heavily, which included nvda, and we talked about that yesterday, all right, on the video. So it is very interesting to see how this we'll move forward, and we'll look at it on the charts in just a second and see if it recovers. Was this, just a little bit of early kind of fear into the market just to pick back up the dip and run it back up to highs? Or is this going to be a continuation further down and inject a little bit of fear right before the election, scoop the dip time, right? Pick up the dip time and ride it up back to all-time highs. All right. So that is one key catalyst that happened today that kind of spurred the market back down. All right. The other catalyst was what I just said earlier, which was the fear and greed index. If you remember yesterday, I showed this. We were sitting up here at about 77. So again, anytime you are in extreme greed and you are already in your positions, right, whether that be call option positions, whether that be your futures positions, whether that be your share positions, right? If you are already positioned, this is a time where investors typically take some profit off the top, right? Or they are expecting a pullback so they can add more into their position. This is why you typically do not want to buy at all-time highs or buy when we're in extreme greed or even greed at times, okay? You want to buy when the market's in extreme fear, and you want to hold your positions, right, when we're in a neutral position on the fear and greed, okay? Now, let's look at the Dow, S&P, the Russell 2000 are our small cap companies, and then the NASDAQ or our tech index. Okay, so you can see here that naturally the Dow pulled back around just underneath 1%, S&P about 0.74%, and then the Russell, you can see a clear rotation in our indexes where people are taking profits out of everything that has run up in our S&P and the NASDAQ and moving it over into some small cap companies. Okay. Our NASDAQ or our tech index spearheaded by ASML, nvda. All right. That is our semiconductor sector. That is our biggest downside today on the NASDAQ. All right. Let's see what else. That's about it for fundamental news. We had a couple earnings that reported today. Okay. I'll show you that on the charts. We had UNH, we had Walgreens, we had Johnson and Johnson, and each of those reported fairly decent. Okay, so let me get myself out of the way here and show you what we were looking at yesterday. All right, so SPY, here we go. Okay. Oh, there's my little lotto at the end of the day. For those that are familiar with anything, just was like, yeah, just in case we get a little squeezy action, right? But here is our pullback level, okay, on SPY specifically. Okay, so right here at 578 to 577 is 5,800 on SPX. Right, the stock market likes to move in those round even numbers. So 5,800, 5,900, 6,000. Okay, so it naturally pulled back from all-time highs, right, when we're extreme greed, right back to a buy zone that buyers want to pick the dip up and try to retest and take that high out. Okay, so here's what I am looking for potentially to happen, which is, let me get myself just a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Okay, here is what I'm looking for potentially, right? A retest of that underbelly, which is right around 583, if we can build up some strength and get a little recovery in the market. Okay, so if we can reclaim this VWAP level here, 580, 581, if we can reclaim and get back over underneath 580, okay, I think we can push back up underneath this underbelly here, which is just this support, this previous support, right around this 583 or so. And can we take that out? Okay, if we can, then we'll just reclaim the whole move, right, from today. If we can't, we will start to form a lower high, and that has now set a trend. Okay, so like I said earlier, when we have a drastic fall or when you have a drastic rise, that is typically natural for a pullback, so you can have nice flow and rotation in the stock market. So if we have a lower high, then we can spur lower just like this. Okay, right, and that would start to form that downtrend that we have been waiting on to come even further down. We do have some gap fills down below, right back down to this 570, 575 level. Okay, so that will be my next buy zone, will be 575, 574. Okay, right here, right there. Okay, so we'll see how that plays out. Okay, tomorrow, how we recover. Now, what I did like is that we did have some reaction off of this level towards the end of the day. You see this wick right here. We did not reclaim and close above 580. However, we did have a nice buy up here off of this 578 recovery, and we would have to reclaim 580 to try to retest that high just slightly. Okay, so that is a decent signal for some upside. But overall, after this big fall, what I'm looking for now are clear rejections. Okay, still want to be careful at these all-time highs. So if we get a push back up into this level, right, then I am looking to officially short this, because this was indicator number one. Okay, indicator number one. Okay, if we can get a recovery back up and form a lower high and we start to see rejections up here, then we can get that continuation down lower, potentially into the end of the week, right? Or potentially into next week in the close of the month. So we'll just have to see what happens. Typically, we can run up into the election, but if we close this month kind of flat or weak, then we could have a little bit more selling closer to the election, and then that dip gets bought up, and then we ride it through the election and after. All right. So let's cover the semiconductor sector. As you see, I have my watch list up here for the semis. Okay, nvda, okay, down roughly about 5% on the day. After hours, down about 0.5%. So nvda pulled back, filled a gap that was down here partially down to 127. Okay, so it got bought back up. It did reclaim a very key level, which was 131. Okay, so that was a positive thing for nvda, is it did reclaim that level. Okay, for us to potentially retest that high again. nvda is trying to take out that 140. Investors want to get that 140 push potentially, right? But ultimately, again, same format. If we have a recovery, okay, even if we have a recovery, I would still be looking out for a lower high formation, which would be right around this rejection of underneath 136. Okay. So if we recover another 5 points back to the upside after the day's plummet, right, I'll be looking for that rejection of 136, because ultimately I think the best risk to reward is it wouldn't happen in this one fell swoop, but it would do something like this and then continue down to this 120 area on NVIDIA. Okay. So for my NVIDIA holders, my NVIDIA bulls out there, I personally think this is the best risk to reward right here on this trend line here of NVIDIA, right? If we can get that 120, 119 retest, fill that gap, I think that would be the best risk to reward personally right here for calls or for buying shares, either one. Okay. So that is ultimately what it would look like. Okay. Let me form this and here. Okay. But the video is not going to go down that easy. All right. So bulls might try to push it up just slightly tomorrow. Again, if we don't have any negative news, negative sentiment again tomorrow, then we could get a pretty decent recovery off of this level and then form a lower high to come lower. Okay. It is options expiration week. Okay. OPEX, go look that up. OPEX. Okay. Options expiration week we have on Friday, October 18th. So do typically, if for my beginners out there, you do typically see a little bit more selling. Okay. You do typically see a little bit more selling coming into options expiration day. Okay. On that Friday, but it can push up into it and then pull back. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm looking for Wednesday and Thursday, especially if retail sales come in positive. We could recover just slightly and then get that big rejection towards maybe the latter half of Thursday or into Friday. Okay. Just a trade idea, just a sentiment of these bulls, and we're still in a bull market. Every dip is getting picked up. So just got to expect that. All right. Now one semiconductor, right, that is on watch, and I am swinging calls in this. We signaled today was SMCI. Okay, while all that plummeting was going on, SMCI is essentially just building liquidity, right? Building liquidity right here to try to get above 50 and hold above 50 to push up into this $60 range. Okay, so that is beautiful right here, in my opinion. While we had all that selling, SMCI was building and building and forming this liquidity build, okay, where buyers were stepping in, gathering their position, calls, shares, whatever it might be, and it's consolidating, trying to get the market to help it out to just spur it higher. Okay, it gave us a little bit, here, gave us a little bit here, and, it's ready for a breakout, in my opinion, right? We still got to be mindful, but with all that selling, that was a signal to me that, okay, I'm going to swing this. I'm going to give it a chance because it finished off with a decent close. Still a lot of top wicks here, but I like the higher low formation to take off like this. That would be beautiful. That would be beautiful. We can get a nice recovery. So if I do a measured move on this, this is simply a bull flag, right? If I do a measured move here and take it here, okay, that takes it right up to, close to just under 55, and it might squeeze through this gap fill just slightly. Okay. So there's SMCI. All right, let's see here. A couple more, and then I'll let y'all go. If you have any questions or if this is valuable to you, make sure to subscribe and hit me a like, and then also share it with a friend. And also comment down below any questions you may have. I will read the comments. Any thoughts you may have. This is a community, so everyone has their own opinion about which direction the market may go, right? But we're reading structure and price action based on where we can go. We're still in the overall bull market. We're still forming higher lows, but these pullbacks are natural for the market, all right? Tesla, really quick for my Tesla bulls. We've got to get over 220, okay? It's struggling right here, consolidating at 220. Got to get over 220 for it to spur into this gap fill, all right? Otherwise, it's going to try to get back down into this 210, 212 level, and then ultimately that 200 to 205. So there is Tesla for you. IWM, okay? IWM, this is our Russell 2000, as you saw before. So IWM was fairly strong, but it did reach that 225 resistance level, got knocked back down at 225 and coming back down into these buy zones at 221 to 222. Okay. Let's see. Palantir folks, talked about this yesterday. I was telling my community members, like, man, I really want to short this. I really want to short this because it was giving me this rolling over here. It had touched multiple times at about 44, just getting topped out here, getting some heavy wicks. And then finally today was the day where it picked up volume and broke this trend. All right. Beautiful trade from roughly just under 44 down to 41. Those contracts well over 50+% for sure off of open. Okay. For puts. All right. Apple was relatively strong to the market today. I think it had some news. Right, Apple had, optimism. It was phone sales. So it had some positive sales data, right, which was good for Apple this morning, was positive pre-market, pulled back into this 232, 233, reclaimed 233, okay, reclaimed 233, and then pushed up into those highs where we had back over here, okay, back in July, all right? So it retested the high, got rejected. Now it closed back above 233. So in my opinion, Apple's going to try to retest this high, try to take it out, right? If it can't, it will probably roll over and try to do something like this and come back underneath 233. So we are at all-time highs again on Apple. It did not break out of all-time highs, but it retested it again, okay? Apple's earnings at the end of this month. So I typically, suspect that tech earnings will run into their earnings, which is why a lot of these stocks, this natural pullback can get a nice little push, run up, dip buy into their earnings. Okay. Let's see. Any other names that I just wanted to pull out here? Nike. I told my community, I did this on an Instagram live, that I liked Nike's. I just want to kind of test it. Nike is getting absolutely beat down, right? But it got a new CEO and it's in a severe buy zone here. So what we're doing, or what I'm doing personally, is I wanted to test some call options on Nike at this 81 level. Okay. This 81 level on this trend line. I liked it. It fell right here off of those sales data. Okay. This was their new CEO announcement. Let's see. Oh, that was their earnings. Excuse me. They had a new CEO announcement. Then they had the earnings. Then they recovered. Then they started basing and started forming a higher low. I'm trying to see if Nike off of retail sales can maybe give us a little spur into this gap slightly. Okay, it's going to need some serious news and retail sales are going to have to come in positive. All right, but it was worth a try. It worked today. Finally, Nike got a little boost. Okay, and let's see if it can continue into tomorrow, and then I'll be a little bit more confident in it if it can get above this 83. Okay. All right. I think that's about it. So overall, my sentiment and summary for everyone on here. Again, if you're new and this is new to you, awesome. Welcome to this skill set. Hopefully this gives you a better idea of how to analyze the market from a fundamental standpoint and also from a technical standpoint, or the charts, right? If you are a more experienced investor, let me know down below what you see. What other stocks, what other indices are you looking for in levels? I'd love to hear from you as well as a community. If you want to join our Discord, get some free information, links are down below. All right. Until next time, if there's any stocks you want me to go over and make specifically over a video, let me know that too. And I will put that out on this channel. Thank y'all so much. Peace, love, and blessings. See you in the next one.